Hi, how you going? I'm Pharmacist Fi and this is Denver. Welcome to our Medicine Safety YouTube channel and to this special edition episode in which we would like to share with you why in 2022 more than 30,000 people in the USA became so unwell that their doctors diagnosed them with a serious condition called EVALI, which stands for e-cigarette or vaping product use associated lung injury. EVALI may cause one or more of the following symptoms: feeling short of breath, coughing, chest pain, coughing up blood, vomiting, fever and/or chills without having an infection, weight loss, or fatigue. And the symptoms usually start days to weeks after starting to use an e-cigarette or vaping device. And the symptoms get worse if the person keeps using the device. And if you've been using nicotine e-cigarettes or vaping products, if you get any potential EVALI symptoms, get checked by a doctor immediately. In this video, I'd like to share with you some ingredients which are believed most likely to have been responsible for the most severe of these EVALI drug reactions, so that you or anyone you know can try to avoid e-cigarettes or vaping products with those substances in them. Plus, I'll also put into the description section of this video a list of other ingredients to try to avoid, and after that I'll also share 10 top tips to help you try to minimize some of the other safety risks if you or someone you know are buying an e-cigarette or other type of vaping product to help quit smoking. In 2019, the U.S.A. Centers for Disease Control, or CDC, temporarily monitored EVALI cases, and in the most severe cases, 68 people died and 2,807 people were hospitalized, some of whom needed to be on ventilators, and for some people even ventilators were not enough because their lungs were so inflamed that not enough oxygen was moving across their lung tissue into their blood, so they needed temporary extracorporeal oxygenation, which involves blood being taken out of the person's body through a tube into a medical device that increases the oxygen level of that blood and then returning the blood back into the person's body. The CDC found that more than half of the e-cigarettes or vaping products of people who developed severe EVALI lung symptoms contained vitamin E acetate, also called VEA or alpha-tocopheryl acetate, which may also be written like this. And the vitamin E acetate was mostly in unregulated e-cigarettes or vaping products that also contained THC, which stands for tetrahydrocannabinol, which is a chemical extracted from cannabis. Now, it might sound strange to think that vitamin E, which a lot of people have used on their skin or swallowed in vitamin or mineral supplement products, might potentially be triggering a life-threatening illness for some people who vape certain unregulated products. But a key thing a lot of people don't know is that different parts of our body may have very different responses to the same substance. And because vitamin E is a type of oil, whereas the tubes in our lungs are coated with a relatively watery liquid containing a delicate balance of proteins, antioxidants, and a special type of substance that can bind to both oil and water, which you may have heard called surfactants or phospholipids. And we have tiny waving hair-like structures on the cells lining our lungs to help constantly move that special liquid up so it gets swallowed, which helps us get rid of bacteria, fungi, and viruses out of our lungs. But if you suddenly start regularly breathing in a type of oil that puts a coating on that normally watery liquid, which makes the special liquid harder to move, maybe the immune cells in some people's lungs might start a severe inflammatory reaction to call in reinforcements to try to get rid of that invading substance, which is making it harder to clean the lungs. So this is one theory of how vitamin E acetate might potentially trigger EVALI. Also, when some of the vitamin E acetate is suddenly heated during vaping, it may chemically change into a range of smaller chemicals that are toxic to our lungs, including ketene gas, which is not only toxic to the parts of our lungs where we absorb oxygen, called alveoli, but ketene gas is also very chemically reactive, so it may react with a range of proteins, which may cause damage to the cells of our lungs, which is another theory of how vitamin E acetate might potentially trigger EVALI. According to the American Thoracic Society, which is the society of doctors who specialise in medical conditions affecting our lungs, in their recent report, and I'll put a link to that report into the description section for anyone interested in more of the science behind this video, that report said that almost half of the THC e-cigarettes or vaping devices used by people who developed EVALI in one of the state reports in 2019 contained medium chain triglycerides, which are also called MCT, which are a group of certain types of oils or fats found in things like coconut, which are considered safe to eat, but might not be good for the lining of our lungs. So another theory is that medium chain triglycerides in unregulated THC e-cigarettes or vaping devices might potentially have also been a factor in some EVALI cases. And it's also possible that one or more of the extra ingredients of some types of nicotine e-cigarettes may play a role in EVALI, because about 1 in 5 of the people who got severe EVALI said they vaped products containing nicotine, not THC. And although it's possible some people were not comfortable to admit they used THC, or they didn't realise that they vaped THC because they got their e-cigarette or vaping product from someone like a friend or a dealer rather than an FDA-regulated store. However, it is likely that at least some of those 1 in 5 people might have got EVALI from nicotine e-cigarettes or vaping products without THC in them, and therefore probably without vitamin E acetate or MCT. So the theory is that one or more other chemicals might also trigger EVALI. And this is quite possible because we actually don't know a lot about the potential effects on our lungs from e-cigarettes or vaping devices, partly because they've only been in common use for about a decade. But another thing to consider is that whereas medical companies making medicines have to show high quality clinical research in a large number of people to state the exact treatment effects on the part of the body that a drug works on and what potential side effects to expect. In contrast, companies making nicotine e-cigarettes and vaping devices are not medical companies. In fact, they're mostly tobacco companies, and they only need to show the FDA what ingredients they put in their product and what combination of extra ingredients might be formed by the sudden heating of the product in the e-cigarette or vaping device, and that their e-cigarette or vaping product has a smaller number of harmful ingredients than the hundreds of harmful chemicals in a tobacco cigarette. But they are not required to conduct large clinical trials to test how those ingredients might affect our lungs. And something making it much harder to get research on this topic is that tobacco companies are constantly making new e-cigarette and vaping products with slightly different combinations or amounts of ingredients. For example, in the last 3 years, there were more than 26 million different tobacco product applications to the FDA, which were mostly for nicotine e-cigarettes. So because of this, even if high quality research is done on the effects of some types of e-cigarettes or vaping products, that research might be out of date by the time it's completed, because by then a whole stack of new products could have been made with slightly different combinations or amounts of ingredients, which might affect people's lungs differently to what was in the research. And when it comes to e-cigarettes or vaping devices containing active ingredients like THC or caffeine or vitamins or essential oils, how these things might affect our lung tissue is even more unknown, because the FDA is currently only allowed to regulate e-cigarettes and vaping devices containing nicotine. Under the current laws of the U.S.A, because e-cigarettes and vaping products are classed as tobacco products, not medicines, that means tobacco companies are not required to tell the general public what ingredients are in their e-cigarettes or vaping products. However, if you or someone you know are buying an e-cigarette or other type of vaping product to help you quit smoking, here are 10 ways to try to minimize your risk from e-cigarettes and vaping products. Only shop for e-cigarettes or vaping devices in an FDA-regulated store and ask for an FDA-regulated e-cigarette or vaping product that has come straight from the manufacturer and has not had anything extra added to it. Because some stores or dealers add extra flavors or extra active ingredients like a stimulant or extra solvents to e-cigarettes or vaping products, which would mean it then becomes chemically a different product from the one which was regulated by the FDA, which makes it potentially much more risky. And for the same reason, avoid getting e-cigarettes or vaping products from friends or relatives or unregulated online stores or dealers, because there is a higher risk those products might be unregulated or have had something added to a regulated product, which might make them more harmful to the cells in your lungs. Tell the person serving you that you must not use products containing vitamin E acetate or medium chain triglycerides. And you also want to avoid the list of harmful substances, which I'll put into the description section of this video for you. Avoid e-cigarette or vaping products containing any active ingredients or flavours other than nicotine, because although a flavour or vitamin might be safe in food, that does not mean they are safe in our lungs, especially after being suddenly heated in an e-cigarette or vaping device. For example, even common flavours like cinnamon from the chemical cinnamaldehyde produce toxic substances when used in e-cigarettes or vaping devices. And something else I think everyone should know about flavours in e-cigarettes or vaping devices is that combinations of flavours may be even even more risky than individual flavours. So avoid e-cigarette or vaping products that contain any added flavours or active ingredients other than nicotine. Ask for a low heat or low power e-cigarette or vaping device, because if the temperature at which the device heats the vaping liquid into a vapour is lower, that might partly decrease how many toxic chemicals are produced. Only vape outdoors to reduce risk of your exhaled vaping residue being breathed in by other people, especially children, and keep e-cigarettes or vaping devices where children and animals cannot access them, because children have died from drinking the liquid from these devices, which has a very high nicotine content, so it's seriously toxic if anyone drinks it. Also, avoid getting vaping liquid on your skin. For example, if you're refilling a vaping device. Preferably wear nitrile gloves, which are chemically non-reactive, or at least wash your hands really well afterwards, because nicotine vaping liquid is also toxic if it gets absorbed through your skin. If your e-cigarette or vaping device uses a lithium battery, keep it away from metal objects like coins, because if a lithium battery comes in contact with metals, that might cause it to catch fire. Also, follow manufacturer instructions about how to use and where to keep the lithium battery, like only charge it for the amount of time that the instructions recommend. Don't smoke or vape if you're pregnant. Vaping does cause harm to your lungs, and it might harm your unborn baby, and smoking definitely does. So ask your doctor for advice about a range of other safer options available to help you quit if you need them. And just remember, if you get any potential EVALI symptoms, get checked by a doctor immediately. Please click the subscribe and like buttons below this video if you'd like to see more of these medicine safety videos. And Denver and I look forward to catching up with you again very soon here on this Pharmacist Fi Medicine Safety YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Bye.